Mr. Dwalu Khasu.
Good morning. I guess it's technically afternoon. Hello, Render attendees, and thank you to Render for allowing me to speak. So I'm the head of engineering at Airbnb for finance technology, and that means my teams track all of the money that goes in and out of Airbnb. There's some interesting dynamics to that. And I could tell you about the technical challenges because there's a ton. But I think, one of the things I realize is for a lot of ICs or individual contributors, and especially in this community, we don't get leadership development, right? We talk a lot about languages and synchronization of processes and multi-threading and distributed systems and databases and front ends. One of the most critical components of our job is influence. You're expected to drive impact and scope. How do you do that? What does that look like? And it's not just managers, right? As you grow as an individual contributor, whether you go the management track or the IC track, you're still expected to be a leader growing and flexing that muscle. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Personally, and this is why Airbnb also aligns with me, because our core values rest in the same place. I believe the most important job we all do is to develop our team in one way or another. And so I've condensed what was a 1-hour presentation for another audience into hopefully 20 minutes here. All right. So why is leadership important? What do leaders do? Not a rhetorical question, sure. Say that? Foster growth, sure. Lead? That sounds like a recursive definition. Leaders lead, well, we won't get into that. Well, yes, I'm a techie, right? So recursion is a thing I do all the time, or used to do. Now I lead, and every day I will describe to you some of what those challenges are. So fundamentally, I think great leaders inspire, they empower others. Empower others. What does that really look like? Great leaders drive compassionate support across their teams. You show up and you care, because that's what your team needs. Great leaders drive high performance by facilitating clarity. What does that look like? Getting clarity for yourself can be challenging. How do you do it for a large team? My team is 120. Well, total org size. All right, so I was thinking about what my average day in leadership looks like. Looks like self-awareness. I have to be really aware of where I am, what I'm feeling, my own personal conflicts, right? What kind of day have I had? How challenging was? What are the things I'm bringing into the office that may impact my ability to inspire and empower my team? Because if you're not aware of that, you bring it into the office, right? We all know you've had a bad day. I'm a dad of 3 boys. I love being a dad. It's the best thing ever. One of them is here. He wouldn't appreciate me calling him out. But I love my boys more than life itself. And every now and then you get into that moment where one of them does something a little crazy, right? And they start your day off and you're like, And if you go to work with that, the first time she says something like, can I have, no! And what do you want? And it comes, so you want to be really aware of where you are and get settled. I do a little bit of meditation before I get into the office. Self-awareness is critical. I think awareness of your environment, knowing what's happening with your team, right? Really listening and being aware. So I have someone on one of my teams in a previous life that was severely ADHD. And that meant certain types of work. This person could tell you how weather and clouds form, and they can tell you Fourier transforms in real time. They can do very high order math. But simple decisions like writing a test or deciding which test to write, really difficult. So being aware of your environment and being able to make decisions like in real time, right? Processing a lot of this data to make real-time data-driven decisions, that's also part of leadership. That's what you have to do every day. So more than just the technical deliverables of deciding whether you use a key data store or a SQL database, and if you're driving 40 million transactions per second, you have to be aware of your team. You have to be aware of yourself. Emotional safety is so critical to high performance. So, self-awareness, awareness of environment, data-driven decision-making. How do you process a lot of that information as it's coming in and really make relevant decisions that support what your team needs to deliver? You've got to have a decision-making framework. How many of you have, and this is, maybe a show of hands or we can pass it, but seriously, how many of you have a decision-making framework that you could share and talk through, and others could say, yes, I may not agree with you, but I see the logic and I understand your points and I can help you drive a decision. That's part of facilitating clarity. That's your job. It's not just your manager's job. If you're a tech lead, if you're someone aspiring to be a senior IC or even beyond that, you have to do that. Conflict resolution. We all know that, right? It's not just a get thing, right? Conflicts between your commits. It's today, and I don't know your name, I'm gonna pick on you, but he and I, had a disagreement. We're not aligned. And then usually it's one of us slightly, there's something personal maybe going on or not, but it quickly devolves into something where we're both stuck. I can't get beyond a simple comment in his code, and so now it takes a day or two to get that simple thing resolved. Conflict resolution skills are super critical to your goal and your drive as a leader. And then this one is probably more manager specific, right? Performance management. Sad thing at the end of the year, or hopefully you're doing it every 3 months and sooner, right? Feedback conversations, you're working through what you're rating, what are your goals, how are you driving them? It can be a very fun and interesting conversation at times. So, I'm gonna walk through some of these and hopefully talk a little bit about how do you get there? What does that look like as you grow those muscles and those skills? One of the first ones I think is leading with purpose, aligning on a set of core values or agreed upon objectives. How many times do we do that? We walk into a meeting and it's unclear, and this is not just for techies, right? I think it's independent. We walk into a meeting, it's not clear what the objective is. What are we trying to accomplish today? Right? If you're not aligned on that, you're probably not gonna get it solved. So one of the first things we do is make sure that our purpose or our objective or goal is really clear. That's part of facilitating clarity. As an individual, and this is an interesting one because this isn't something I learned. I used to be a 10 or 20x dev, right? I worked in C and Lisp for many years, and I was allowed to sit in a room. It was a room bigger than this, and I had 3 screens and a couch, and I could code for hours, and I never had to deal with people. I was really clear on all the bugs I had to fix, what were the critical features I was driving, and I was very comfortable not dealing with people because people are more challenging, right? It's easier to solve a problem because there are not so many emotions involved. But seriously, having a clear sense of your purpose, core values, and aligning on those objectives are super critical to starting your day. As a personal commitment to yourself, I say start every day with a clear sense of your goals. What are the top 2 things you have to get done today? And at the end of the day, ask yourself, did you get it done? And I'll tell you why that's important. Because every day, we have to be building trusted relationships. It's probably the most critical thing you do as a leader. If you can't say something and be credible or people believe you, what do you have? In any context, right? It's not just techies, it's not management, it's in PR, it's in sales, any role you have to be focused and committed to building trusted relationships. So, there's something called the trust equation. Trust equation is credibility plus reliability plus intimacy, ooh, scary word, divided by self-orientation. Yes. Oh, you can Google it, but it's called the trust equation. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. Now, for the mathematicians in the room or not, if you think about that denominator, if that's a big number, the overall number will be really small, right? So self-orientation is a big number, you're going to have problems creating trust. Just think about that for a second. If that self-orientation number is really big, you're going to have a problem creating trust. So, credibility, we talked about saying what you're going to do and delivering on it, right? Those 2 goals you promised your team, when you say, I'm going to review your commit and deliver on that, or I will write out the vision and I will deliver by next week, you have to deliver on that. And if you can't, let them know early. No one likes surprises, right? And no one likes last-minute surprises, especially those ones where it's due for the team today and you say, oh, I forgot. My son this morning, he ate my homework. No, that doesn't work. You're expected to be a professional. Building trusted relationships is super critical. Whether you own a restaurant business as a leader, you have to build trusted relationships with your staff. Car salesmen, trusted relationships are super critical to everything we do in our daily lives. And I would say it's probably more important looking at the world around us today. So, another thing about leadership, and I have all these little cute frameworks. I've got one for navigating systems. Wherever you are, there's something I call the power problem map. Think about that, power problem map. It's essentially, how do you map what are the most critical problems in a company that your boss and maybe your boss's boss and your boss's boss cares about? And then for the power side, what are the key stakeholders, partnerships, relationships? Who cares about these problems and initiatives? So if you're looking to get some visibility or create impact or scope, those other pillars that affect how you grow and how you give visibility and promotions in your company, power problem map. So let's talk about what that means. I'm trying to move a little fast here because there's a lot of little bits. So imagine, and this is great, it's easiest when you start a new job, but it doesn't matter, you can do it anytime. You start a new job and you're a newbie, so you can make all kinds of mistakes and you can ask all of those. No question's dumb, by the way, but you can ask a lot of dumb questions. One of my favorites is, hey, how does work get done here? You really don't know, right? At least not yet. And you're not expected to know that for a few months, hopefully. In Airbnb, we like to give people time, right? We sort of buffer. There's some people that work for me here, and they will tell you, I've said, take 2 months. Meet people, build relationships, learn how work gets done. Because right after that, you don't get another chance to have your first month or your second month. You're expected to know some things and deliver. So, power problem map. I go to my boss and I go, hello, boss lady. What are the 3 most important initiatives that you're working on or that we're being measured by? And she says, XYZ. I go, thank you. Who are the most important stakeholders that care about those initiatives? ABC. So now I know 3 critical problems at her level, and I know at least 3 people that are really concerned about them. So I go to them and I ask them, what are the 3 most important initiatives you're working on or that you care about? And who are the 3 most important stakeholders? So as you see, I'm building this map of problems 1 level up, and I'm building a map of the power structure 1 level up. At least this is relevant to my boss, because she just told me that. And I hope you're facilitating clarity for me. Okay, so then if you think about it, I'll get to the part about promos. If I forget, someone remind me why this is relevant for promos. But, so now I know 1 level up, a lot of the problems and the people that are driving them. And if you listen careful enough, you'll learn about like the potholes and the landmines and some of the things to avoid where you don't want to step into some. Context is really important, so pay attention. So then what I do is I go another level, I go skip level, and I ask the same set of questions. So then I know the power problem map at my boss's level, and if I do it well enough, I know the power problem map at my skips level. I've got some good information. What do I do with that? So if I want to build my influence, if I want higher impact and scope, if I want to get that promo in a year, depending on your level, right, a year, 2 years out, you got to be working and showing demonstrable and observable skills and competencies at the next level or potentially 2 levels up. Because if you just do your job, you're going to get, well, thank you, very good job, meets all, fantastic work. That's not a promo for working at your level. You're at the level you're at, and that's not going to get you promoted. So I tend to aim high, right? I call them big bets. I'm an ambitious guy, I'm aggressive, I want more. So I go 2 levels up, and I start trying to work on the initiatives that are 2 levels up. And I talk to the people 2 levels up and make sure they know I'm interested in working or helping out on those initiatives. It can be challenging, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys work on the L5 is a senior SWE, L6 staff. Sure, let's assume that. I see a few nod heads. Depending on the company you're at, I used to be at Facebook, Airbnb similar, Google similar, I've been there too. L3s, you're expected to work at the task level. L4, maybe project, right? You can decompose a project and deliver and drive a project on your own. L5, you're probably creating some of the project and creating those problems. You're defining them. L6, you're solving some problems across the company. It can be challenging to work 2 levels up. But I would just say to you, if you just do your job, that's a meets all, which is actually really good, right? You've met all the requirements of your job. You're going to get, potentially your bonus as agreed, and you'll still have a job. If you want to get promo, you have to show demonstrable skills and competencies at the next level. So that's what that power problem map gives you. That's your opportunity to be a leader for your team, as well as step up and show up as a leader for yourself. Another good thing I think leaders do is they focus on opportunities, not problems. It's really easy to get stuck on, he and I have a problem, I can't work with him, his comment in that code really sucked. That PR is not going to get committed. Nah, that doesn't go anywhere, right? Then we're all stuck. Problem in another life, this is a real personal, this happened. So for about 3 months, we had a very critical company initiative that was blocked because of conflicts, real conflicts, right? Like resource conflicts in another team. And we had escalated it multiple levels to get prioritization, and it wasn't getting resolved. And so some people threw their hands up and said, oh, this is a problem, we're not gonna get through it. There's no way to resolve this. And I was like, okay. It's been 2 months, we gotta get this work done. I gotta go find someone that wants to help me solve this problem. So I saw an opportunity to go dig really deep. It took some time to find the right person, but because I had done my power problem map, I understood where the critical leverage was in that team. And I went and talked to them about, got alignment on this problem. I said, look, maybe we both share some of the, the trade-offs here, right? We both share the time waste. Good leaders solve problems, and they look for opportunities. They focus on the opportunities, not on the problem. It's really important. So how do we do some of this? Active listening. What does that really mean? There are a lot of people I know as you're talking, they're sort of, waiting to respond. You say something, it triggers for them, and they interrupt you right away because they're ready to go. I don't agree with you. Python doesn't have multi-threading. And, oh no, what's a good one? I've had this argument before. Garbage collection in Java sucks. I believe that because I tried to write a new garbage collection runtime for Java, but that's a different conversation. Anyway, you say something, it triggers for someone, and instead of listening to the entire context or fully understanding your story, they're now ready to react. They've been triggered, and they're not actively listening anymore. They're not focused on, I need to get my point across. Boss lady, you just said something I don't agree with. My performance was great. Don't tell me that. Maybe you've got some useful feedback from me. Maybe I need to hear the rest of it. Active listening, asking questions is super, super important. It's part of your leadership muscle. Empathy. Everyone talks about empathy. It's like a new hot word. I like empathy. I do. My son, I hope he says I lead with empathy at home. But I like compassion. Compassion is empathy plus action, right? It's okay and it's fantastic to have empathy. Situationally, sometimes people need you to actually do something about it. So being able to discern quickly when do you step in and do something and lead with compassion is super critical for a leader. IC or people leader. We talked about conflict resolution. I won't go back there. There's a lot of that happening every day. Feedback, one of the most critical things we can do. It's a gift. Doesn't always feel like a gift, at least not at Christmas or at performance reviews. But feedback is really a gift. And if you take your time and prepare, I do a whole presentation on feedback, so I'm really passionate about it. But one of the things I say is prepare, make sure you're specific about the situation, make sure you're specific about the behavior, and make sure you're specific about the impact on you. I don't want to hear boss lady's, well, she said you did X, Y, Z. That's always difficult, right? It leads you down a rabbit's hole and you get into an argument. If you tell someone what you feel, it's hard for them to argue with what you're feeling. This is how you're feeling. This is really where you're at. Boss lady, when you said to me my comment wasn't good in front of the team, it didn't feel good. I was a little embarrassed. It felt bad. I mean, that's a simple example, but it gets a little bit more. Now, feedback. It wasn't about it didn't feel, my comment wasn't necessarily bad, right? Bad is a judgment. Perhaps you could say it could have been, well, I might have done something different. I might have thought about providing more clarity and making sure the comment was really clear about why the change happened. Maybe a link to a document that explained it in more detail and why it's relevant to make this change. But just saying my comment is bad isn't always helpful. Feedback, constructive, actionable, specific, super, super, super important. As a leader, learn to give feedback and learn to take it. So if y'all want to give me feedback after this, I'm raising my hand. Give me some feedback. I can take it. The other thing we talk about as a leader is creating inclusion or inclusive spaces. More and more, and actually, I'm really proud of working at a company that really believes in belonging. Have anyone here not read our mission? Airbnb's mission? To create a place where anybody can belong? I love that. Super challenging. But we live by that in every single meeting. Like every single meeting, we think about being inclusive and making sure people feel heard, people feel present. And it can be challenging, but we're committed to it every single day. Comes back to active listening. Comes back to making sure all of our men, women, in any levels of diversity, right? Ethnicity, levels of education, abled or not, we make sure they have a voice. It feels really good to be in that kind of place. And so everyone then steps up and you get this sort of warm breath of lots of brilliant ideas coalescing, right? And at the end of it, If you got a solid decision-making framework, the team can at least align on what we're all going to do. And that's really important. At some point, she may disagree with me, but if the team aligns on an idea, that's a disagree and commit, right? We're going to disagree. I don't agree with you, but the team is committed to go that way, and he's going to start coding. We're all just going to follow that ship. Super important is leadership. All right. A few things I was thinking about. Leading is not managing, right? So if anyone has any questions about that, we should talk about that offline. I'm super, super passionate. Leading is not managing. Don't manage and say you're leading. Leaders, they're good at giving autonomy. So you set some big bets, you set some goals, and you say, here's where I want to go. Please help me figure out how to get there. And they don't manage your time in every single aspect of how you do it. You've got autonomy to figure out how, and you can be the product owner or technical owner of that solution. You learn the team benefits, there's a lot of growth. But you're held accountable, right? That's the other thing. You give autonomy, you can't have autonomy without accountability. So you've got to track accountability. Leaders. Super critical to have a growth mindset. What does that mean? Anyone? Growth mindset. Show of hands. Yeah. Okay. No, that's a good one. That's a good way to say it. You? Yes. No. Yes. Sure. I like that. Even better. You? I've been picking on you, so you got to talk. Yeah, there's a lot of that, all right? Okay, I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to keep going. Sorry, you should go too, and then we're done. Yep. I'm sorry. This is the first time I'm going to ask you to take your mask off and then put it back on. Sure. So all of those are right. I like the ideas. She said something that was really poignant for me, so I would just say, take a growth mindset, turn it inwards. You can grow, you can change, you're not fixed. The people around you can grow, they can change, they're not fixed. And then you challenge them to do that. And you challenge yourself to do that. That's what I think growth mindset is about. And by the way, these are my opinions. If you don't agree, you can give me some feedback later. Happy to take that again. The other thing that's really important is, what do you do about empowering your teammates and empowering your peers? Because great leaders, people want to work with. It was interesting. When I was at 10x, 20x engineer, and I delivered all of those work, super critical technical stuff. I fixed a lot of asynchronous problems that many other devs couldn't fix. But I had an interesting not liking people problem at the time, or I didn't care for them as much. I care now a lot more. But at the time, I preferred to be in my room, 3 screens, coding. Give me 14 hours, I can work whatever I want, and I didn't have to deal with people. But it meant that people didn't always want to work with me. That doesn't make you a leader. People want to follow leaders, right? Because you make them feel good, you empower them, you inspire them to go beyond their self-perceived limits and constraints. So you got to empower your teammates, you got to empower your peers, and cross-functional stakeholders. Super important if you're going to be a leader. If people don't follow you, you're not a leader. That's not supposed to be funny. If there's no one behind you, who are you leading? Okay, so my son says I'm terrible at jokes. I was probably one of them. I will file that away. So, enough of my son. I know he's not liking this. And you guys can probably see him. He looks a little like me, though he doesn't like to hear that. You know, parents do that sometimes, right? They do this at the expense of their kids. I never liked it when my dad did it, and now I do it to my son. Circle of life. Anyway, so, another thing great leaders do is they're really, really focused on results, highly committed to having a support and a challenge network. Quick time check. How do we look? 1 minute? Woo, I'm close. See, I'm working it. Have a support and challenge network. Really important. Your support network tells you and reassures you, hey, Dwalu, you're doing well. You're kicking butt. They acknowledge and recognize you for what you're doing. That's really important to get recognition. And you should be a support and challenge network for your teams. Recognize and support them. Great job on that commit, man. Loved it. Thank you. Glad we got it through. Challenge. That commit also, let's talk about ways we could do it better, right? And hold them accountable to being better. So it's super important to have a support and a challenge network. Find people that will acknowledge and recognize your work. Find people that will push you to grow. There's a whole bunch of tips in here. Sorry. If I had more time, I would have distilled each of the different chapters. But if you don't remember anything else, take a growth mindset, turn it inwards. Power problem map. It's how you understand the relationships between people and problems that you can solve, not only for your own growth, but for your potential promos and the impacts you want to have. Because that's what companies grow people on. It's influence, it's impact, it's scope. You don't get it by working at your level. All right, I'm going to wrap up now, but thank you very much. Happy to talk to anyone, answer any questions. Give me some feedback. Thank you.